tried to get to you, but you came to me instead. With the dawn, the grave is gone. Oh, how
here in the band. With me, we have Austin on guitar and singing. We also have Paul on guitar, and we have Paul as well on bass. Kicking it over there in the dulcimer, we have Mary, and then lastly, we have Courtney kicking it on the drums. I want to welcome you all with us today, and I invite you to stand and feel free to show some love and welcome those around you. For those tuning at home online, I want to also welcome you. Feel free to type in the comments where you're viewing from and just show some love and say hi to those that are also viewing. Feel free to take a moment to do so. And I'm awakened to your love for me. My protector, my helper, friend and my king, my defender, my treasure. You're my safety, all I welcome in your arms. Because love is who you are, nothing can take you away. And I adore you for all that you are.
You are God. You are God. We adore you for all that you are. We adore you. Pour out our hearts and you adore us just as we are. You are God. You are God, our ally. You are God. You are God, our ally. You are God. You are God, our ally. You are matchless in grace and mercy. There is nowhere we can hide from your love. You are steadfast, never failing. You are faithful. All creation is in awe of who you are. You're the healer of the sick and the broken. You are comfort every heart that mourns. And our King and our Savior forever. For eternity we'll sing of all you've done. For eternity we will sing of all you've done. And we sing, God with us, God for us. Nothing can come against, no one could stand between us. God with us, God for us. Nothing can come against, no one can stand between us. Your heart, it moves with compassion. There is life, there is healing in your love. You're the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. For eternity we will sing of all you've done. We sing, God with us, and God for us. Nothing can come against, no one can stand between us. God with us, and God for us. Nothing can come against, no one can stand between us. Where there was death, you brought life, Lord. Where there was fear, you brought courage. When I was afraid, you were with me, and you lifted me up. You lifted me up. Where there was death, you brought life, Lord. Where there was fear, you brought courage. When I was afraid, you were with me, brought courage. And when I was afraid, you were with me. And you're lifting me up. You're lifting me up. Let's sing that one more time. Where there was death, you brought life, Lord. Where there was fear, you brought courage. And when I was afraid, you were with me. And you're lifting me up. Lifting me up. This morning as we gather here and we come into this space, and there could be any number of things going on for you this morning. There's a swell in this pandemic, a new variant, and that might be creating new worries or maybe a new despair. Places where we have felt hopeful, where we have felt like we're turning the corner or we're doing something that feels like a new normal, then things change again. And for the record, that's kind of all of life. And so this morning, maybe you're in that place. Maybe you walk in with a sense of hope. Maybe this new year has brought some new beginnings for you. This line that you're lifting me up, I think sometimes we attribute it to this God that's out there that we pray to and we hope will show up for us when things are rough, when things are hard. All throughout Scripture and all throughout our lives, we see God working through others. And so showing up here this morning is lifting up the people around you. Participating in community can be the hand of God. And so this morning we stand here together, we sing together with a sense of sacredness. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here, for participating in this space, for showing up, for being love for yourself, for others. Looking forward to the next moments ahead. Thank you. You can be seated.
Good morning. My name's David. I'm the announcement pastor. I didn't know if that would go over well. I'm not actually the announcement pastor. That's a fake job. But apparently, I've been doing this a lot lately. We don't have an announcement pastor. Neither does anyone else. I do have some announcements, though. So now that you're in the mood for them, a couple things we want to draw your attention to. The first is something that has actually already happened today. So you'll have to wait till next month, but we still want you to know about it. And it is called Coffee with Kindred. Kindred is our LGBTQ plus led kind of block community here. I want to be super clear about something. It's not the only place LGBTQ people can hang out. Y'all can hang out and serve and do whatever you want here. But we do have a space that is by and for our LGBTQ persons called Kindred. And they, throughout the year, plan various get-togethers, functions, sometimes just for the Kindred community, sometimes for the entirety of our Watershed community. And this week, they came to us with the wonderful idea of, what if we kind of just host a coffee meet and greet get-together from 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. On the second Sunday of every month. And so they had their first one this morning, and it was great. And they will be doing this for the foreseeable future, like indefinitely, forever. And it's going to be awesome. And it's important that we announce this because of when it happens. It happens at 9:30 to 10 a.m. and none of you are here then. Because normal for Watershed is to come 15 minutes late. So if you're new today and you actually came early and you're like, oh, there's no one here. Now you're looking around like, oh, thank God everyone's here. This is one of those things that we are doing to perhaps incentivize punctuality in our community. So that's happening. So much different energy than last week. This is good. So to transition, the next thing I want to draw your attention to is something called Preface. Preface is awesome. It is sort of a welcome experience for those of you who might be new or newer to our community. The way I typically explain it, probably ad nauseum at this point, is that it's an opportunity for you to hear a little bit about Watershed's story, our spiritual journey, our transition to from what we were to what we are now, and what we hopefully will be continuing to become in the future, if that word salad made any sense. And it's also an opportunity for you and those who are attending with you to share your story as well and to see how those might intersect. If you have questions, if you want to know a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of our community, or quite frankly, just enter into community to meet people, we highly recommend Preface. The first one of the new year is starting very soon on the 19th. And while we are monitoring, trends with COVID very closely, we are still planning on this being a fully in-person experience, our first one in a few years. If anything changes, we will let you know. And there might be situations in the future where we kind of hybridize things and things like that. But as of right now, it's going to be in person, masks, distance, whole 9 yards. Might end up being in this room just to spread people out and things like that. But you can sign up for that by taking a picture of the nifty little thing that kind of looks like a old television that doesn't have a channel, and or by going on the Watershed app and signing up that way. Some of the old people who have actually seen TVs like that are chuckling at that reference. Next, my transitions today are poor. The next announcement is that we have volunteer needs. Shocker. We have volunteer needs everywhere. Some things that I want to draw your attention to, first and foremost this morning, are Greenhouse, which is our children's space. We will always have volunteer needs at Greenhouse. There's not like a point at which we hit like maximum perfect amount of Greenhouse volunteers. So if that's not for you, like, don't feel any sort of like anxiety or stress or pressure. Like, we're just always going to bring that one up. But it is a phenomenal space led by a phenomenal person who you will get to see here in a few moments, Blair. And yeah, so and the cool thing about kids is like they come at like they exist at various sizes. And so if you're like more wanting to hang out with the smaller variety, we have opportunities in that field. And if you like kind of the bigger ones who are more capable of complex thought and abstract thinking, we have those as well. Less of an immediate emphasis, but one of my other side gigs is I'm the youth pastor here, and so if like all of the small sizes sound bad to you, they do come in even bigger versions, and you can hang out with them as well. So those are two of the volunteer opportunities. Other ones that I want to emphasize, our tech team. If you don't want to hang out with like almost anyone at all, and like want to hang out in the back, we actually have hurricane-proof glass back there. So it's like a real significant buffer, and lots of opportunities there. And then our hospitality team, which I also lead, surprisingly. So it's kind of an interesting experience right now because you're wearing masks. And so no one can see your entire face. So what I've been saying is, for hospitality, if you're really good at smiling with your eyes, then this is probably the place for you. Or not, maybe you have not smiley eyes. We will still welcome you onto our welcome team because we are a welcoming bunch. So all in all, simplest thing to do is to, again, go onto our app, and there's a whole form where you can check boxes of what you're interested in. And then there's some other like kind of more niche things that if none of the things I just described sound remotely good to you at all, we do have other things you could do. So many things, all the things. No excuse for anyone not to do a thing. And so you can go into that, and then someone, probably me, maybe someone named Samantha, will contact you, and we'll kind of go from there. And it's going to be probably, top 10, at least, decision you've ever made in your life. So that's kind of what's going on. One other key thing, we always end our announcement time talking, celebrating giving and generosity, and really the financial ownership that so many of you take. Last week, I had the opportunity to really celebrate the way that so many of you kind of stepped up and help us meet our year-end giving needs. We had a very much COVID-induced deficit in our budget, and y'all stepped up, and it was awesome. Talked about the fact that going forward, the best way for us to both be sustainable, but also have the opportunity to really dream about cool things that our community can do, both locally and abroad, in the future, is for people to sign up for recurring giving. That allows us to kind of plan out and predict what our budget's going to look like, so that we can be more ambitious, aggressive even, when it comes to everything from bringing in cool voices like Austin Channing Brown, Pete Enns, and things like that, to continuing to expand and diversify our staff, generosity with many of our justice partners, things like that. So that's all still true. Yay. Awesome. But the other thing that we want to kind of point out this morning is it's coming into tax season, and so many of you are going to be looking for those year-end giving statements. And in an attempt to be as green and fully digital as possible, we're trying to streamline our process this year. And so, again, one of those cool QR codes or on the app, it'll take you to a series of instructions that'll basically, we're asking you to confirm that your information online is accurate, so that we can email you successfully with your giving statement, or if you prefer not to get one digitally, if you kind of old school, want that physical paper copy, that we know that and can make sure that we get that to you. So it's all pretty straightforward, much more straightforward than like when your bank or your student loan predator is trying to give you those end of the year statements. We're way smoother than that. But just wanted to put that out there, make it super clear, so you're not sitting there like waiting at the mailbox and it's like, well, it's in your email inbox. That could be surprising for people. So go on there. If you have any questions, there's ways to contact us to get that clarified. So I have probably generously exceeded my time limit this morning, so I'm going to leave. But good to see you all, and yeah, have fun.
You didn't know you were getting a stand-up comedian this morning for announcements. All right, so because there is so much energy happening, we're going to do something that we don't typically do. I'm going to ask you to stand up for this next song. And you're probably not going to know the song, so you won't be able to sing along, but it's got a lot of space for some maybe dancing or clapping or however you want to do that this morning. So here we go. I've been waiting for days I could wait 1,000 more, just for one more second or two to explain the way that I feel. Oh, if we get it right, this could be paradise. Just you and me, just you and me. Oh, ain't no sacrifice with you by my side. Just you and me, just you and me. I'm gonna say it right to your face. Wanna know what love is. Wanna know what love is. Another minute I don't wanna waste. Wanna know what love is. Wanna know what love is. Only thing about me and you got me feelings going through the roof. Only thing about me and you. Gonna say it right to your face. I wanna know what love is. Wanna know what love is. I will run to the moon. I will bring a star back for you. Wanna know that if it was you, would you do the same for me too? Oh, get it right. It could be paradise. Just you and me. Oh, ain't no sacrifice with you by my side. Just you and me. I'm gonna say it right to your face. Wanna know what love is. Wanna know what love is. Another minute I don't wanna waste. Wanna know what love is. Wanna know what love is. Only thinking about me and you. Got my feelings going through the roof. Only thinking about me and you. I'm gonna say it right to your face. Wanna know what love is. Wanna know what love is. Wanna know what love is. What love is. Oh yeah. Wanna know what love is. wanna know what love is. Wanna know what love is. Another minute I don't wanna waste. Wanna know what love is. Wanna know what love is. Only thing about me and you got me feels going through the roof. Only thing about me and you. I'm gonna say it right to your face. Wanna know what love is. Wanna know what love is. Yeah. Wanna know what love is. Wanna know what love is. Oh yeah. Wanna know what love is. Wanna know what love is. Thank you so much, RBC.
Remember that time that Jesus was thirsty with that woman at the well? He asked her if they could have a drink together. And she was like, I don't think we should be talking to each other. And he was like, if you had any idea who I am, you would be begging me to buy you a drink. And she's like, I don't think your bucket is big enough for my well. You guys are supposed to be laughing. You laughed with David. Why not me? And he's like, you have no idea. And she's getting a little thirsty herself now and accepts his offer. But first he checks. Where's your husband? No husband, she says. He questions that, something about multiple husbands. And then they argue a little bit, and eventually this argument resolves, something about worshiping his mountain, and then she runs off to tell her friends all about him. And then the disciples show up with all these questions, and Jesus is like, chill, you just don't get it. Good morning, Watershed. My name is Blair, and I'm the greenhouse pastor here, which is why I had to edit the version of that story that David actually sent me, because it was just a bit spicy, if you know what I mean. Something about the word gushing was in there. I was like, let's not use that one. So I want to this morning talk about the woman at the well. And I think that as funny as that version of that story is, I think that maybe that's how John intended it to be for us. Because I think that he liked to get a rise out of people, and he liked that shock factor. Now, aside from being a children's pastor, I am a tutor at a local elementary school with English language learners. I spend as much time with my friends who inspire me to be my best self. I'm a daughter, a sister, a kick-butt aunt, and hopefully one day a partner and parent. I've never been married and have no kids of my own. Don't let that distract you. I don't know why either. You know, you're trying to figure it out. But I'm actually the only one teaching during this series that is currently experiencing the dating world in all of its glory. And I say that very sarcastically. And I bet some of you are probably thinking, the ones who are married, you're probably like, dating's the easy part. And I hear you. I believe that every type of relationship we have is complex. The friendships, the dating, the relationships, the situationships, co-parenting, exes, on and on and on. And so that's why I feel pretty strongly about talking to you this morning about the messiness of relationships and how they can lead to some serious exhaustion and unfortunately, eventual cynicism. When I started testing out dating apps a few years ago, I remember asking my more experienced dating friends if certain things were normal, and their response was yes. And you're probably going to have to do those things too if you want to find somebody. And I was like, And by certain things, I mean this whole like cat and mouse game, you know, the one that everybody says, guys want to feel the chase. You can't let them know you're interested. Don't text back too quickly. Don't text back too slowly. Meet with within a certain amount of days. Don't meet within a certain amount of days. Don't cross your arms when you're with them. Ask questions, but not anything with depth. Don't meet for a meal on the first date. Do meet for a meal on the first date. Ghost them if you don't want to see them again. Don't ghost them. That's rude. These are the things that I dealt with. True story, the first time I got ghosted, like 5 years ago, I messaged this guy and thought he was dead. I was like, did you die? He was like, no. Now I feel pretty dumb about it. But I was new, okay? So there are all these invisible rules that I realize people have created out of self-protection and survival mode and probably some selfishness. And I just found them to be disgusting. You know, I wanted to know, why can't we just all show up and be our true selves? I didn't get it. But fast forward through 4 years, a new city, and dating during a pandemic, and I've recently realized that I've become exactly what I didn't want to be. Because I'm exhausted with dating. Exhausted to the point of feeling cynical and cold-hearted and just apathetic, don't care. Self-protection and selfishness, I realized, was how I was choosing to show up in that space of my life. And it was exhausting because it wasn't who I am at my core. And so I hated it. Emotionally and relationally, I think this might be how the woman at the well felt just a little bit. Exhausted, frustrated, and not feeling very hopeful about humanity at that point. This conversation between this woman and Jesus that's found in the book of John, it starts with Jesus traveling at noon, and he stops to rest in a place called Jacob's Well, which still exists, in Samaria. And yes, the Bible actually does say noon is whenever they were there, so clearly that time must be important. And it's believed that that time of day is whenever no one else was at the well. So I'm pretty sure she wanted to show up whenever nobody else was there, trying to avoid people. And also, Jesus was a Jew traveling through Samaria in the first century, and that's not typically what happened because they weren't big fans of each other. So this Samaritan woman she walks up to the well, and she's coming to obviously get water from the well, and Jesus asks her to drink with him. And she basically is like, are you talking to me? How is it that you, a Jew, want to drink with me, a woman of Samaria? The fact that this conversation even happens is the shocking part. It's not even about what's in there. It's just that it's even occurring. Because we see two taboos at once here. First is that Jesus is a religious teacher, and he's talking to a woman in public, and that's not typical, because patriarchy. And then it's not just a conversation, but it's the longest conversation that's ever recorded in the Gospels with anyone. Then second taboo is that Jews and Samaritans are interacting with each other in intimate ways, which is the sharing of water. These two groups don't like each other at all. They disagree at their core. They both think they're right, the way that they worship God, and they refuse to see the other way. And so there are two fault lines of division here in this story: gender, and then religious and ethnic sectarianism. And John brought them front and center because Jesus brought them front and center, which he tends to typically do. And Jesus answered her in the story. and said, "If you knew who sang this to you, then you would have asked me, and I would have given you living water." So Jesus here is trying to hint that he's kind of a big deal, and she's a little weary. I don't blame her. And so she's not buying it, but she still continues this conversation. And she goes on to say, kind of in a smarty pants kind of way, "Sir, you have no bucket and the well is deep. Where do you get this living water you're talking about? Do you think you're better than Jacob, the one who gave us this well?" And then Jesus responds to her, "Everyone who drinks the water that I give them will never be thirsty again." So she's willing to try what he's talking about at this point, but I still don't think she's buying what he's selling. So she says, "Sir, give me this water so that I may never be thirsty or have to keep coming back here to get water." Now, this conversation, this story, is showing us two principal features of the way Jesus shows up in this world and how we're invited to show up in this world. First is that we live in a way that dismantles divisive hierarchies, patriarchy for one. Second, that we live in a way that bridges these divides. Now, the book of John overall is very focused on getting rid of historical rules, the categories that people have created. It wants us to know that God has come to be present with us. It's moving us towards relationship and intimacy. Now, this story, we'll go back to it, it continues with Jesus telling this woman to go tell her husband about this living water. And she tells him she doesn't have a husband. And he's like, "Oh, I know. You actually have 5. And the one you're with now is not even your husband." And this is where she actually starts to believe that maybe he's someone important, that maybe he is a prophet, because he knows things about her. Today, we'd call that a stalker, or Joe Goldberg. But back then, they called them prophets. But really, this section is so interesting to me because the way that it was taught to me as a kid is very different from what the text really says. So Dr. Jennifer Garcia Bashaw, she's a New Testament scholar, and she wrote the book Scapegoats, the Gospel Through the Eyes of the Victim. And she says this woman in the scene was not a blushing soon-to-be bride, but she was a wedding-weary woman. Now, I'm not sure about you, but like I said, I grew up hearing this passage, and this woman was always painted as a scandalous, unfaithful tramp most of the time. Even a prostitute possibly came up. But the fact is that neither Jesus nor the gospel writer make a statement about her 5 husbands. And it's quite likely that the marital status of the woman is not her fault. Divorce in the first century context would not have been initiated by a female. So it most likely was that she was the one that got divorced. And it could have been from infertility. It could have been any reason that they deemed justifiable. And so her life, if that was the way that it was going, was pretty much plagued with uncertainty and rejection. There's also some scholars who interpret these husbands not in the literal form, but in a symbolic form, where they actually talk about those 5 husbands could be the 5 political powers that had ruled Samaria, the 5 groups that were rumored to have compromised the early Samaritan people, or 5 pagan deities or religions with whom Samaritans had committed idolatry, and prophets most of the time used idolatry and adultery interchangeably. So it's important that we don't come to this text and interpret it through our own modern lens. And that modern lens sometimes has some pretty misogynistic assumptions. So back to this story. She's like, wait, if you're a prophet, then why do you think we have to worship in the temple in Jerusalem? Because we, Samaritans, believe that we go worship God on Mount Gerizim. And Jesus responds by telling her who he is. So he felt safe enough to do that. And that location is no longer important, because his arrival signals something new, a new intimacy with God. It's not about a temple or a mountain, but it's about God's word made flesh. Then the disciples showed up confused, as usual, because of who Jesus was talking to pretty much. And then the woman went back and told everyone she knew about this encounter, and they all believed, it says. And like I told you, friends, this was huge. Jesus is challenging these old systems that are there, saying there's no need for animals anymore. There's no need for money changers. There's no need to compete about sacred sites. These systems are no longer about those things. And it wasn't just those things during that time, but it was also the social barriers between men and women, between Jew and Samaritan, between friends and enemies, insiders and outsiders, us versus thems. So this movement towards a new intimacy, it's a new exodus towards freedom for all. It's struggling together towards a different world. And just like John reminds us throughout the book that intimacy is the key to imagining and creating this different world, I think that matters for us today. So I want to talk about what the heck is intimacy. I want to call it emotional intimacy and define it as allowing ourselves to connect more deeply with others through actions that express feelings, vulnerabilities, and trust. It involves being able to share your deepest fears, your deepest dreams, your deepest disappointments, and your most complicated emotions. And it's not just about sharing them, but it's about feeling heard and seen and understood when you do share them. I know some of you are probably thinking, oh, that's a perfect world. This feels hippy-dippy, but it's not. It's possible. Esther Perel, who is a Belgian psychotherapist, says that the quality of your relationships is what determines the quality of your life. And the bonds and the connections that we make with other people, that we establish with them, gives us a greater sense of meaning, of happiness, of well-being than any other human experience. Now, I wholeheartedly agree with this statement, and I think she's right about the value and power that relationships hold in our stories. But relationships have shifted so much over the years, especially in marriage. What we used to get met by an entire tribe or village, now we expect that from one person. Things have changed. We're kind of making up a new system as we go, and they need to keep changing. We've unraveled the one we had, then we unraveled another one. The ones that were pretty simple because they were dictated by rules. Religion had very clear structures and incentives and prohibitions for people who are married. All the big decisions were made for us in those relationships. Who was going to be the breadwinner? Who was going to wake up to feed the baby at night? All of these things were already decided. And the social hierarchy was very clear. It told parents how to talk to their kids, how children had to respond to adults, how husbands had to talk to their wives, and how wives didn't have to answer to their husbands. Now, as that changes and evolves, we're stuck in a world full of options and choices and unprecedented freedom. But the sad truth is that we don't live in a relationship-cherishing culture. We all live under the rule of patriarchy. Family therapist Terry Real says in his talk, The Birth of Relational Joy, that patriarchy is a binary. Half of human qualities we call feminine, half of human qualities we call masculine. And everybody knows which side is which. Masculine qualities might be strong, independent, brave. It's never love, never connection, never vulnerability, never yearning. And then the feminine side is nurture, sensitivity, emotionality, dependency. And the flip side of that is the hierarchy that goes with it as well. These qualities are not seen as separate but equal. Masculine qualities are typically seen as more valuable. So patriarchy hurts us all. Why? Because we can't be faithful to the model that we were raised in and be intimate at the same time. The traditional gender roles of men and women are not built for intimacy. They're built for production, consumption, and stability. We're living a linear patriarchal life instead of a deeply relational life. And what is truly a relational life? It's an authentic, loving connection to yourself and to others. Now, there's no question about the complexity of relationships. From the time we were born, our connection to others has shaped us. And the truth is that we tend to hold ourselves the same way that we've been held in previous relationships. We create relationships that we've seen, had, experienced, and those relationships and connections develop a person's attachment style or their specific way that they relate to others in a relationship. This is what affects me in dating. This is what affects your arguments with your partner. This is what influences your parenting style. And the list goes on and on and on. I've put up here, there are 4 different attachment styles. There's secure, anxious, avoidant, and then anxious avoidant. If you're in that last one, there's like 7% of you. So that's a fun group. Our goal is to be in the secure. And I'm not going to talk about this for very long because it's something that you can look up yourselves. But our attachment style, it does affect our relationship, and it changes based on who we're in the relationship with. So we can show it very differently in different relationships. I will tell you right now, most people on dating apps are very avoidant. Just so you know. But if secure attachment is us showing up as the best version of ourselves, then how do we do it? And it's going to take work. It's not easy. But I think that there are 2 ways. The first is that we recognize which part of ourselves is showing up at any given moment. Is it the functional adult part, which is the part that has a developed prefrontal cortex, that can recognize their ego, that is able to practice mindfulness? Or is it the part that is our adaptive child part? Is it the part that we have learned how to just get along? Or, the part that sobs, the part that's wounded inside of us? It is only the functional adult part of us that wants to be intimate. The wounded child in us is overwhelmed and is focused on self-protection and survival. So if you want to be intimate, first you have to come out of your triggered self and get recentered. Who you are will determine if your relationships are successful. Not what you do, but who you are. So who are you? Who am I? This is what I had to go back to when I had this realization about my own heart and soul. And the way I'm trying to figure that out is by using this thing called a bullseye. Maybe some of you have seen it. It's a values clarification exercise that was designed by Swedish therapist Tobias Lundgren. I always think about Tobias from Arrested Development. But it's a dartboard, and it gets divided into 4 important domains of life. There's work and education, leisure, relationships, and then personal growth or health. But it makes you think about what's important to you deep down. It's not goals. It's actually who you are at your core. What sort of qualities do you want to cultivate as a person? How do you want to be in your relationships with others? Our values are our heart's deepest desires for the way that we interact with and relate to the world. They are the leading principles that guide us and motivate us as we move through life. Now, just as Jesus upended the norms in his engagement with the Samaritan woman, I think it's time for us to upend the fake relational norms of today. But rather than treat this as a selfish free-for-all, I think we need to approach it with the same intentionality that Jesus had. We're all connected. We're all living in this ecosystem. We're sharing this space. And I believe that deep down we're mostly good at heart. Selfishness is that adaptive child part. It's our response. It's our way to self-protect and survive. But a different world is possible. Let's be people who love well. Let's be people who wake up to the world around us, struggle together, resist the norms and systems and policies that don't give life to all of creation. I'd like to close with a beautiful poem that I found that I think it clarifies what it looks like to move forward towards intimacy, becoming the soil from which we grow. It's called Let Us Be Women Who Love, but I've changed it to Let Us Be People Who Love. Let us be people who love. Let us be people willing to lay down our sword, words, our sharp looks, our ignorant silence and towering stance, and fill the earth now with extravagant love. Let us be people who make room. Let us be people who open our arms and invite others into an honest, spacious, glorious embrace. Let us be people who carry each other. Let us be people who give from what we have. Let us be people who leap to do the difficult things, the unexpected things, the necessary things. Let us be people who live for peace. Let us be people who breathe hope. Let us be people who create beauty. Let us be people who love. Let us be a people where the divine may dwell. Let us be a garden for tender souls. Let us be a table where others may feast on the goodness of our universe. Let us be people who give life. Let us be people who love. Let us rise to the questions of our time. Let us speak to the injustices of our world. Let us move the mountains of fear and intimidation. Let us shout down the walls that separate and divide. Let us fill the earth with the fragrance of love. Let us be people who love. Let us listen for those who have been silenced. Let us honor those who have been devalued. Let us say enough with abuse, abandonment, diminishing, and hiding. Let us not rest until every person is free and equal. Let us be people who love. Let us be people who take courage and sing the song in our hearts. Let us be people who say yes to the beautiful, unique values seated in our souls. Let us be people who call out the song in another's heart. Let us be people who teach our children to do the same. Let us be people who love. Let us be people who love in spite of fear. Let us be people who love in spite of our stories. Let us be people who love loudly, beautifully, divinely. Let us be people who love.
Practice a little bit of gratitude.
sit and meditate on the let us be. It's another thing to walk out of this room and be that kind of people. And so in these next few moments, we have an opportunity to visualize that. What does it mean to be that kind of people? People who love. And so we're going to do this song. You might know it. Feel free to jump in and sing along with us. If not, let us sing this over you. Take these next few moments for yourself.
Songs dance till my feet are numb, spin till I'm empty and poor. I can't praise you enough, and shout till my voice gives way, till I have no strength, lose my breath trying to explain. And if time were to stall, I can never tell it all. Words so few, this will have to do. I just wanna thank you. I just wanna thank you. I just wanna thank you. I'm so grateful.
You lost your breath dying to say, I'll never go back to that grace. I can't praise you enough. And if time were to stall, I can never tell it all. Words are few, so this will have to do. I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you. I'm so grateful. I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you. I'm so grateful.
And standing in your promise, surrounded by your goodness, yeah. You have overwhelmed us. Hallelujah. I'm standing in your promise, surrounded by your goodness. You're just getting started. Hallelujah. I'm standing in your promise, surrounded by your goodness. And you have overwhelmed
so grateful. I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you. I'm so grateful. One more time. And I just want to thank you. And I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you. And I just want to thank you. I'm so grateful. God, this morning as we practice this resistance of gratitude, may it bleed into our week. May it bleed into every part of our lives. May we become this people of love. May we be more like love. May we be more of ourselves, more of you. And in all of the spheres of influence and community that we have, may those spaces be transformed to be more like love. We thank you, God, for this space, this community, this people, these moments. We love you, God. Amen. Thank you so much for being here today. We'll see you next Sunday.
Spend